Hey guys, today I'm going to show you how I made this bag. And so this is a wax canvas bag. It has two outer pockets. Well, I guess it's just like one outer pocket made into two. It also has some inner pockets. It's fully lined and it has these shorter straps and then a shoulder strap. And I actually drafted this bag myself. So I'm going to go through my process of how I figured out my dimensions and all that interesting information, I guess, that you need to know in order to make your own canvas bag like this. So the story behind it is basically I really wanted to make a new bag. It's part of my 2018 Make 9, but there weren't any patterns that I was like really set on. I really like having a shoulder strap and two shorter straps, so I really wanted that to be a feature, and then like having some nice inner pockets that I can put stuff in, having a lot of like I guess like little compartments to keep my stuff a little bit more organized, if that makes sense. So yeah, it was actually really fun to make. It wasn't too much effort. Actually, I was really happy with how it turned out. So I hope you enjoy this video, and I'll see you in a minute with how to make this bag. Thanks for watching. So here's a quick overview of the supplies that I'm gonna use in this project. I'm gonna use this is just some canvas fabric. I dyed this like a pink color using some avocado pits, and I actually do have a tutorial on how to do that. So yeah, I just have this fabric. That's going to be the main fabric for my bag, and then I also have this this linen fabric that's a remnant, and I'm going to use that for pockets on the interior of the bag. I've also got some otter wax, which I'm going to use to wax the canvas, just so it's a little bit more sturdy and so it's water resistant. And then I have this pink thread, which obviously will match the pink, and I can use to assemble my bag. I'm also going to need to use some sort of marking utensil. This is just a water-soluble marker, or not marker, but it's a water-soluble pen that will disappear if I put liquid on it. I've also got some leather strapping. You don't have to use leather if you don't want. You can use whatever type of strapping you want. You could even make strapping out of the canvas material or whatever material you're using for your bag. This is just what I wanted. I've also got a punch set for leather. This is because I've got some rivets that I'm going to use to help me with my strap. So the leather punch will help me be able to achieve that a little bit easier. And then I just have like this assortment of bag hardware. Obviously this like depends on your personal preference. So I'm going to make a shoulder strap for my bag, and I want it to be detachable, so I'm going to use these lobster claw hook things. And then they will hook onto these D-rings, which I will attach to the bag. And then I also have this, this set of magnetic snap closures. And I actually have two of them, so I may or may not use all of those, but yeah, I have those ready. You're also going to need something to cut your fabric with. I just have my rotary cutter because it's the most convenient. It's also nice to have like some sort of grid to cut things out on, but you can also just use a ruler if you don't have one. It doesn't make a huge difference, honestly. It just makes things a little bit faster. I'm going to just talk about construction for a little bit. This is actually really easy to figure out how to create your bag, but it is, I don't know, I did make a few mistakes whenever I first tried it out, so I thought I would like tell you what I did wrong and how like you can avoid these mistakes. Okay, so what I did to determine what I wanted my measurements to be for the bag is I took an existing bag that I had that I liked the dimensions of, and I measured that bag, and this is what I have right here. So this just shows that the base of my bag was 11.5 inches. It was around 8.5 inches tall, and then at the bottom the width was around 5 inches. And so I decided I want my new bag to be 10 inches tall, 12 inches wide, and also 5 inches deep. So based on that, I knew I wanted to cut one piece for the front and one piece for the back. And I initially tried to figure it out this way, but this is actually wrong, so don't pay attention to that. Okay, so if you look at this square, this is a little bit more accurate. So you start out with the base width that you want, and that's going to be 12 inches. So that's pretty straightforward, like that's how long you want your bag. And then I added 1.5 inches for seam allowance. That gives me 3/4 of an inch for my seam allowance on each side, so that's plenty of room. And then I added an additional 2.5 inches, and that was to account for the depth that I want. But basically what you do is you fold the corner so it's like flat. Actually, I can show you with this bag that I tested out on. So this is like a prototype version of my bag. And on the inside, so this is actually just two like rectangular pieces of fabric sewn together. But how you get it to have the box shape is you fold this triangle on the corners, and so you have the seam here and the seam here, so those are lined up perfectly, and then you sew it across, and you sew it across so that this triangle, this side, is 5 inches, which is whatever depth you want. So you can do this with whatever depth you want. You just want to make sure you add whatever that value is divided by 2. So in this case, since I want it to be 5 inches, it's only going to be half. It's 2.5, and you add that to both sides of your rectangle piece. I hope that made sense. But yeah, so that's how I figured out the like the width of my piece. And then I did the same exact thing for the height. I knew I wanted it to be 10 inches, and then I added 1.5 inches for seam allowance, and then 2.5 to account for the box, like, I don't know, folding over to make the box side so it stands up, if that makes sense. So whenever I first tested this out, I used this other fabric. I would also recommend you have some scrap fabric just to test things out, just to make sure it goes okay. And if you have a couple of things that didn't go exactly right, you can actually use these as baskets or some like cloth type of thing. I don't know, just like cloth containers. So it's not like it'll go to waste. This is originally what I had, and it was way too skinny. Like, I did not want it to be this small. And the problem was I added the 2.5 just to the height and not to the width. So that's just what's going to happen if you don't add it to both sides. One other option you can do is, instead of cutting 2 pieces out, zoom back in a little bit. Instead of cutting 2 pieces out of this panel, you can actually just fold it along this edge, and in that case you would only want to add 0.75 inches to your seam allowance, and you would want to make sure to fold it along that edge. But I think I want to keep the seam there just to add a little bit of more structure. And then I'm also going to add a pocket, and I want it to be 6 inches high, and I want it to have 1.5 inch seam allowance on each side. And then the width is just going to be the same value as the width of the bag. So this is just going to wrap around the front of the bag, and it'll look good, I think. Yeah, that's pretty much all I've got. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to cut out my fabric pieces, and then I'm going to go ahead and wax them, and I'll get to sewing. Alright, so I'm not gonna show the whole or like do a speed through of me actually doing the waxing my canvas, but that's what I'm gonna do right now. So this is gonna take a little bit of time, so I'd recommend, like, I don't know, putting on a show or something. And it's pretty easy. You just kind of like rub across so that it becomes like fully saturated with the wax. As you can see, it will get a little bit darker. And you just want to do that for all of your pieces. Hopefully I'll have enough of this, this otter wax. This is actually nice because it's like 100% natural, no petroleum in it, so yeah. So that's what you're going to want to do, and then you can like rub it around with your fingers if there's a little bit of residual. And this will just protect your bag from any type of dampness, and it will also make it a little bit stiffer, so that's nice. So I'm going to go do that. It will take me a little bit of time, so I'm not going to record that, obviously. Okay, so I'm done waxing the outer pieces for this bag. As you can see, like, the color's a good, like, couple shades darker than the unwaxed kind. So this is just going to be the lining. And I was gonna wax the lining as well, but this is pretty stiff. So what I did was I just waxed one side, I like rubbed it across, and then I went on the back side and I took an iron that was relatively cool and I just ran it over it so it would melt enough to sort of like saturate everything and be a little bit more evenly distributed. And then what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take this front pocket and I'm going to hem the edges. This is already folded over. And then I'm going to sew it in place. And then I'm going to do the same thing to the inside. I have a big pocket that I want on the inside. Oh, I think that's the wrong one. I think this is the... Yeah, this is it. Oops, I ironed this wrong. But yeah, you get the idea. I'm gonna just sew in the pockets first because it'll be a little bit too difficult if I try to sew the pockets in after everything's sewn together. This just makes it a little bit easier. Alright, so I have my pockets inserted. This is the front piece, and I'm just gonna have one pocket. Oops. I'm just going to have one pocket on the front. So this other piece for the front does not have a pocket. And then this is the one of the lining pieces. As you can see, there's a really big pocket here. And then I also have my pocket for the other piece of the lining. So the inside will have lots of pockets, which is what I was looking for. I already have some rivets inserted, just so it's a little bit easier. I don't have to do that later. And so what I'm going to do next is I'm going to sandwich together individually the lining pieces, and then I'm going to sandwich together the outer pieces, and I'm just going to sew all the way around here like this, leaving the top open. So I'm just going to do that with both pieces, and then after that I'm going to fold in the corners to make it like a box shape, if that makes sense. So yeah, that's what I'm going to do next, and then I will actually show what I'm going to do to get the shape the way I want it. Alright, so all three edges of both of these pieces are sewed together, and so what I need to do now is to actually sew the box, or like the box fold, I guess. I'm not really sure what that's called, but yeah. So what I'm going to start out doing is I'm going to just trim off this corner just so that there's not any additional bulk. And you want to be careful not to cut through your stitching line, of course. Although it's not a huge deal if you cut through it because you're going to be sewing or like reinforcing it anyway. This is just going to be on the inside, so if it comes undone. It's not a huge deal. Okay, so I'm going to start with this piece, and I'm going to just open this up and stick my hand inside. And so what you want to do is sort of just press this open, or press this so it's like a triangle. And just like, I like to have the seam allowances facing different directions so it's less bulky. And then once you have like a decent amount, you can sort of just press it down. The other good thing of having the seam allowances facing different directions is that you can make sure that it's lined up correctly. You can kind of feel that there's no gap and that it's not overlapping, because if it was overlapping it would be a little bit like there'd be a bump there. Okay, so this, however long we sew this section, will determine the depth of our bag. And so I wanted that to be 5 inches. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the 2.5 mark on my ruler, and I'm going to put that, line that up with the center seam right here. And I'm just going to slide that up following that center seam until I reach the 5-inch mark and the 0 on my ruler. And this works really well because you know that it's going to be straight, because it is like like 2 different points on a line, so you know it's going to be straight across. I don't think my my little pen will work on this waxed canvas, but I guess I should try it out anyway. Oh yeah, that did actually work. Okay. And so I will just stitch along that line. But for now, I'm just going to mark up the rest of them, and then I'll go and stitch them all at the same time, just to save a little bit of back and forth. And then once I'm done with that, I'll be back with the next step. Alright, so as you can see, I have the corners sewn up, and it's now like actually kind of in the shape that I want. You can see that it's in like a bag shape. And then these tabs will fold under. So this is still inside out, but that's only because I'm going to be sewing the two together. But before I do that, okay, let me just get the lining so that it's right side, or I guess this is the inside out. I already mentioned that I have these D-rings. I have these D-rings, and these are going to be what I hook my my shoulder strap onto. And so I'm going to want to have these attach like at the corner. But since I don't want to use more of this, I'm just going to make some little tab things out of the same material, the same canvas as the actual bag. So these are 1 inch long, I think. Yeah, they're 1 inch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut a strip of fabric that is, so we're going to fold the strip over, so it has to be at least 2 inches and then plus seam allowance. So I'm going to do like 2.5 inches so that I have a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and then I'll just make a nice long strip so there's enough for both of them, so I can attach that on either end, and then we'll be good to go. So that's the next thing I'm going to do. Okay, so I'm going to actually stitch this little tab with my D-ring, onto the lining of the fabric, just so that it's in the right place that I want it, so that whenever I stitched the lining to the outer layer, I won't have to worry about it. So that's what I'm going to do next, and then I'll stitch together the lining and the outer layer. Okay, so I nested the outer layer, or the inner layer inside of the outer layer, and they're right sides together. So right now everything is like inside out. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to rip open the seam so that I can pull it right side out. And that shouldn't take too long. I'm going to try to make it pretty small so that I don't have to sew up that much, because I'm going to end up having to sew this up by hand. You probably could figure out a way to sew this up with the machine, but it'll be a little difficult. Okay, I'll just rip this open a little bit. Then you just want to pull it all the way through. And as you can see, I have my little tabs here for the bag strap, or for the shoulder strap. I'm going to do some little like small handles right there too, so it's gonna have more than one strap. So what I'm gonna do is press this so that it's open, and then I'm gonna attach some snaps onto this. So I'm gonna press this first. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this little backing piece, and I'm gonna figure out where on my bag I want my snap to be, and then I'm just gonna mark it with my my pen, and I'll try to do about the same distance from the center, just so that doesn't bother me later on. Let's see. Okay. Move that over just a little bit. Yeah, that looks good. And then mark it. I'm going to take my shears, and I'm just going to fold this so that I only have one layer of fabric. And then I'm going to make a tiny slit, just like a super tiny slit, as small as you can make it. And then you can always make it bigger if you need to, but if you make it too big, then you're done. So I'd recommend just making the teeniest little slit you can. Let's see if this will fit through. I'm gonna go in through that little hole that I have still, and then see about pushing this through. There we go. That looks great. And then I'm going to take this and put it on top. So I would recommend not using your nail for that. Try to use these pliers, I guess. Use the pliers to bend them just enough so that you can squeeze down on it. Yeah, that seems to work better. So there's that side done. And then I'm going to do the other side. Okay, let's double check to make sure this works. Lines up. Yay! So now I'm going to make the straps. I just have this natural leather strapping that I got, and this is 3/4 of an inch by 84 inches, and so I want one shoulder strap, and then I want two like smaller straps to go around here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this in half so that I have two pieces that are the same length, And then I'm going to take one of those and I'm going to cut that one in half again. And the longer one will obviously be the shoulder strap, and then the two smaller ones will go on either side of the bag. I think first I'm going to do the long strap. So what I'm going to want to do is put this in here and then fold this over, and I think I'll do 2 of these rivets just so that there's like a little bit of reinforcement. So I'm going to start on the end and then just like figure out where I want to punch my hole. Let's just use this. Actually, I don't want it to be super loud, so I'm going to cover my hammer head with a little cloth just so it's not quite as loud. Oh yeah, that was really easy. So I'm going to mark this on the other end. I'm going to want to make sure that I punch holes on the other side a good distance from this. Now I actually have to insert the rivets, making sure that I have this in here. So I have the shoulder strap attached and that's all done. So the only thing I have left to do is to attach the smaller straps. And those are going to be pretty easy to do. I just have to punch holes in the leather and in the bag. And I will also use the little snaps as a guide to figure out where I want my strap to be. I don't think I'm going to use this full piece of leather. I think I want it to be a bit shorter than that.